And welcome back to Balance Point Radio. This is Matt.
This is Nathan.
And we've had, it's been a week.
It has.
I feel like I say that fairly constantly, but it's been a week here. First things off is, I don't know about you, but I've actually had a lot of fun recently talking about some of the things that have been going on. There are a lot of people out there with concerns as to what is going to happen with this new administration and everything going forward there. But ultimately, I like having the discussion. For me, having that discussion, that is the fun. There are some people out there who do not agree with me on this. That is becoming more and more apparent. When I recorded that little rant about the demonstration at the Milo Yiannopoulos event at UC Davis, I thought for sure, I was like, look, this is going to be a one-off thing. Sure, there are people out there who are a little bit, more leftist or a little bit more out there than your average person, but this isn't going to be something that's going to regularly occur. I have, unfortunately, been proven wrong. We talked about this after the inauguration, the protests and the riots that happened there, the property damage, the cars being set on fire, and it has not seemed to slow down since then. And in fact, very recently at UC Berkeley, there was another Milo Yiannopoulos event that was supposed to take place, and the same thing happened. There were demonstrators that came out, people who came out to protest, and again, look, it's your right to protest. No one wants to take away your right to make a statement, do it in a safe way, and have your voice be heard. But the issue here is that now a lot of these protests are turning more violent. There's footage of these protesters pulling the barricades down, just an entire crowd of people pulling the barricades out of the way, moving in, going out, attacking people. And in a lot of the reports, the people who were attacked at this UC Berkeley event, they were punched, they were maced, they were tasered, and a lot of these people weren't even there to see the Milo event. They just happened to be there. They just happened to have the misfortune to be in the area. There was property damage. One news report I saw said that it was about $100,000 in property damage. As this was going on, the police, they put out an emergency warning basically saying, stay inside. If you're at the UC Berkeley campus, if you're a student, stay inside, keep your doors and windows closed and locked, and don't come out because of this demonstration. Personally, I find that pretty unacceptable. But I've done my rant on it, so I want to get your take on this, on what is going on.
I have the same sentiment as you, but a different message in a sense. You get nothing done when you riot. I mean, sometimes you will, but most of the time you don't get really much done. It sets a bad example for your message. If you go out and riot, people are going to look at you and they're going to be justified by thinking, oh, they're just radical leftists or whatever, and they're just going to destroy stuff. And that makes it harder for you to get what you want. So, like what you and me are doing right now, and what we like to set the example for, is to have civil political discourse. And I urge anybody who will go out to protest, do it peacefully. Just stop destroying things. It defeats the purpose.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. That leads me to another point that I wanted to make, because these violent demonstrations obviously do nothing. They don't help the cause. They hurt your cause. Because eventually, the sentiment of your average person when they see these violent demonstrations are going to be, okay, why aren't the police putting these people down? And then once you have that popular sentiment, then the police will get the okay. They'll come out in the riot gear. You get tear gas. You'll get tased. Worst case scenario, they start firing actual bullets at you. Hopefully that never happens in American streets.
That's another good point, because if you start doing that, the cops will start taking your right away. It is a right, but it is also a privilege in a way to be able to go out and protest. It can be taken away. The Congress will just have to convene and or just put in certain regulations, and then it becomes a lose our right to protest, which is, in my opinion, one of our most powerful rights as American citizens. And if you start rioting and you start destroying things, they will start taking it away.
This reminds me of a lesson that I learned that my mom taught me when I was just a little sproutling coming up. My mom always told me that with every right or every privilege that you had, there was also a responsibility that came with that. In this case, we're talking about the privilege of protesting. Because I want to just outline this, because when you look at the First Amendment in the Constitution, the way it's worded, you have a right to free speech, meaning you can't be dragged off to a gulag for saying that you think the government's doing a bad job. You have the right to practice religion freely, and you have the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. Now, for a long time in this country, we have a proud history of rebellion. We have since the founding, this nation was founded on rebellion. It was an act of treason that got this country started off. And every major action in our country's history has been viewed as some sort of rebellious act. We like the rebels in America. We like to think of ourselves as the rebels. And civil disobedience, as it was as it was practiced by Martin Luther King Jr. and by the suffragettes for the most part. And, by the gay rights.
And might I add, last year, Wolfpack did a march in Washington where they had the most people arrested on the front steps of the Capitol building ever. It was a record. They had over 1,000 people arrested in one day.
Were they just sitting there? Or?
They were peacefully protesting.
And see, and that brings me to my point. We have a privilege to protest, and we have a proud history of civil disobedience. But it is not a right to block freeways and impede the flow of emergency traffic. And I get the point that the only way to get people's attention is to create an inconvenience. I understand that strategy. However, you got to understand that you're protesting here, and someone's house is on fire. The fire department has to go through you to get to that fire to save someone's life, or someone is having a heart attack and an ambulance can't get there, or the police need to get to an unrelated crime that's going on. Civil disobedience has to be done in a way that it actually sends the message to the people in power, for one thing, and for another thing, done in a way where it's done responsibly.
Yeah, just take an example of water protectors at DAPL. They haven't fired a single shot. They haven't. I don't believe they've destroyed a single item. That's the example.
My point that that I'm finally arriving to on this is that you have a privilege to protest. And if you're going to protest, it is also your responsibility to make sure that it is done in a safe way. It's not the responsibility of the police to make sure that you're safe. You're going to go out and you're going to put on black masks and throw fire bombs. Their responsibility now is to keep people safe from you, not to keep you safe from other people. And here's the thing. As me growing up as a young punk kid, I listened a lot to the Anti-Flag and Early Rise Against, Bad Brains, and Bad Religion, Minor Threat. And I get that it's a really romantic thing to put on a mask and say go out and F the system and overturn cars and set things on fire and be on the front lines of that great revolution or whatever. But the reality of that is not very romantic. It's like it's the difference of you watch a movie about war. When you watch a movie about World War II, about brave soldiers fighting for freedom. That's a very romanticized idea of what it is.
Oh yeah, the reality of that was horrifying.
The reality is you're dying covered in blood and feces, and you're far away from home, and you're uncomfortable, and you just want it to be over. Okay, so we're luckily we live in a country where we have ways to affect change in our government, and we don't have to resort to violence. So for those people out there at a protest or at one of these demonstrations, if you see people being violent and you're there, call them out. I mean, maybe it might seem like you're being a traitor to the cause, but rat them out to the cops. Say, hey, it was that guy. It wasn't us. It wasn't our march. They're not with the movement.
Now, I'd like to make a point here, because I don't want to sound hypocritical. Because I've said in the past, the police should uphold the Constitution, and the Constitution says we have a right to protest. So our tax money should be spent for the police to uphold our right to protest, meaning they can help or organize protests. What that doesn't mean is they come in and they have to deal with all that crap, all that firebombing and turning over cars and stuff like that. What I'm trying to get at there is, say you have 100,000 people marching down a street and you're blocking that entire street off. Well, in my mind, the cops should be there to kind of help direct people so that emergency vehicles can get by. And that's what our tax dollars should be spent on, but not for ensuring that riots and firebombings and turning over cars continue and property damage and lives lost and injured people. That's unacceptable.
I mean, personally, I would much rather see one of these demonstrations, one of these protests be put together with the police knowing fully what is going to happen. You know, if you're an organizer for one of these protests, go to the police, or, or go to your local magistrate's office or whatever. Say, hey, we're going to have a demonstration. This is what we're going to plan to do. Get a parade permit or something if you want to march on the street.
What is the guy going to do? He's going to be like, so yeah, I'm going to throw a firebomb in this Starbucks at February 9th at 9 o'clock. Just let you know so that the fire department's there.
Yeah, let the Starbucks. By the way, let the Starbucks, one of the most left-leaning.
No, why Starbucks?
Companies,
Starbucks is great, man.
Stop attacking Starbucks. Also, if you're dumb enough to attack a company that has come out in support of your cause, just stop protesting.
Let's make a distinction
here.
You have the actual people who are there to protest, right? People who are there to peacefully protest. Then you have people that come in and take advantage of the situation and then loot and riot and whatever. You're right on that subject where people need to start calling it out and separating themselves from the people who are actually causing damage. And if that happens, then those people will be arrested, and the other people will be allowed to continue to protest.
The sad thing is, this is such basic protest 101 etiquette that I want to know what these kids and the people who are organizing these kids are doing. Because growing up, whenever there was going to be some sort of demonstration, whenever there was going to be some sort of protest, this is stuff that everybody knew to do. What are you doing nowadays? You're like, oh, well, they're firebombing a Starbucks. Nothing we can do about it.
Hashtag Safe Starbucks 2017.
Practice safe protesting, kids. All right, just treat it like anything else. It's a high risk behavior. Be safe with it.
Just to hammer away the Starbucks point. Starbucks just got their employees paid maternity leave for the entirety of the pregnancy. So that's one of the main pillars of socialism or democratic socialism and any kind of liberal left-leaning policy. So why Starbucks? Come on, just leave it alone. Just go bomb Chick-fil-A, but please Chick-fil-A. No,
whoa! Leave Chick-fil-A alone. All right, they're friggin' delicious. Chick-fil-A is delicious, all right? All politics aside.
It is. I'm not even going to lie. I am 100% agreeing with you there. You get one of them Chick-fil-A sandwiches and you put an entire packet of Chick-fil-A sauce on the Chick-fil-A sandwich, and then you dip it in another thing of Chick-fil-A sauce.
I'll tell you what, that is the one thing that I miss the most about leaving the South is there's Chick-fil-A out here in Minnesota, but you got to travel to get to one. It used to be, man, let's go to Chick-fil-A. Yeah. Which one do you want to go to? There were 5 within a mile radius. Oh,
there's one opening up right next to my house.
I get so fat.
Happy about it. I'm so happy about it. right up in North Side Chicago, there is one opening up, and the only one you can really go to is all the way over in Des Plaines or in downtown Chicago. And you'd have to go 45
I think the closest one out here is Maple Grove, which is 30 minutes away, and I'm not driving that far for Chick-fil-A. Sorry, I like Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, but whenever I do go there, I make sure to have them give me a dozen Chick-fil-A
to keep them around.
I know, I literally do. You put it on a Johnsonville better with cheddar bratwurst. Really my god.
Well, you know what? I think honestly that little bit of levity, considering what has been going on, is good. Because one of the big things that has been getting these demonstrators out was it's been called a lot of things. Depending on where you get your news, it's been called a Muslim ban, an immigration ban. I heard it referred to today as a Middle Eastern ban. It's been called a travel moratorium. I want to just kind of cut through all the BS about this. It's a 90-day cessation of travel from 7 countries in the Middle East. It's not a ban. It's not a ban that specifically targets a specific religion. It is a 90-day hold on travel from 7 countries. Now, I've got some pretty big specific opinions on this. Nathan, I'm sure you do. I want to get your thoughts on this.
So why aren't we banning Saudi Arabia? Because Saudi Arabia was the place that the initial 9/11 bombers came from. Oh, maybe because they have oil. That might be it. It's biased. It really is. I expect nothing less of Trump.
I do have an answer for that question though, if you'd like.
Oh, go ahead.
The details around this has been kind of muddy, but the 7 countries that are part of this ban, they were actually targeted as part of the Stop Terrorism Act of 2015 under the previous administration. So these 7 countries weren't even picked by the Trump administration. They basically just did a copy and paste of what the previous president had found. So they basically looked at that. They said, okay, these 7 countries are part of part of this Stop Terrorism Act. So we're going to do a cessation of travel from these 7 countries. I'll be honest with you, they probably could have given it a little bit more thought. I don't think they really gave it the amount of thought that people are attributing it to it. It wasn't malicious, I mean, if they came out and they targeted every single majority Muslim country, I could say, okay, well, now you have a case for it. But they only targeted 7. I think there are 48 other countries, and you even said it, other countries like Saudi Arabia that are on a much higher risk than the ones that were targeted. You're right, we should have targeted Saudi Arabia. To that point, though, a Saudi Arabian prince actually came out in defense of the travel order that Trump signed. And to that fact, a lot of the neighboring countries to these 7 countries have similar restrictions in place for travel to and from those countries. So I think there's kind of a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to it, just because Trump's doing it. Look, I get it. We're going to see that for the next 8 years.
8 years, really?
Yep, 8 years. Hey, I'm strapped in and I'm ready to see this. But just know that for every one of these emotional reactions, there's going to be people that are going to dig into it. They're going to say, okay, look, is this actually what's going on? Is this actually a Muslim ban or not? And it just doesn't seem like in this case that it is.
Well, I've heard stories about people who helped our military in like Iraq. And stories from Afghanistan where like they help our military like translating and guides and things like that. They wanted to they were promised asylum in America, and they were given green cards, and they're like, okay, you did your job and you're coming to America now. And those people were stopped because of this travel ban, and they feel cheated. And I know in O'Hare they have a bunch of immigration lawyers set up in O'Hare right now. Chicago O'Hare Airport, and they're working for free. They're saying if you have a problem with this immigrating to the United States because of the travel ban, we will give you free legal help, which I think is amazing, and that is very selfless of these people, because legal help for that kind of magnitude, especially challenging directly the U.S. government, that's expensive, and that's pretty selfless on their part.
I mean, in those instances where, people have assisted our government abroad, I don't have any issue with them coming into the country. And I just want to go ahead and go on record as saying that, when it comes to immigration is not the problem. But this idea that everyone has a right to come into this country, and that they don't or should not require any type of documentation or any type of check to make sure that they are safe, or that they are not tied to some sort of radical anti-American group, that is just insanity. I feel for the people who are coming in and who got stopped, and who should have been able to come in, and who had all their visas and all their green cards. Look, I feel for you. I do. Traveling generally sucks. And when you have, some sort of layover, when you have something holding you up for being able to travel, it really sucks. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to you've been inconvenienced as opposed to not doing any vetting procedures and then people get killed.
I don't think a total ban is the answer, in my opinion, because we have so much technology. The NSA has so many resources to just dig right into all of your files and to see everything about you and everything you've ever said. It just seems like a stunt to me. It seems like a stunt by the administration to say, okay, to my constituents, I am racist, and I'm showing you that.
See, here's though, I guess where it shows the privilege of the first world on this. That's right, privilege. Because a lot of these countries that people are immigrating from in the Middle East, they don't have any type of of government bureaucracy. So a lot of these people don't. There's no records to check. In this country, we take it for granted that okay, well, if you want to run a background check on someone, you can get their social security number, you can find out what their credit score is, have they ever been in jail, what's their driving record. And if you really want to go crazy with it, go on track them down on Facebook, see what their Twitter feed looks like. I mean, in America, you can find out just anything you want.
Well, they have cell phones, is what I mean. They have cell phones because there are studies done that half of the world's population has a cell phone. And there is as many cell phones for each person on this planet.
Yeah, but that doesn't really mean much. I mean, even the FBI has even come out and said that there is no way that people coming from the majority of these countries in the Middle East, there's no way that they can properly vet them as security risks because we have nothing to compare it to. Like when someone joins a terror organization, they don't get like a terror organization badge that they register with their home government. There's a lot of assumptions that are being made there that it is even possible to vet these people coming into our country.
Now, here's why I made the point that it's an extreme measure that didn't have to be so brazenly enacted. Because there's a lot of arguments from the left that have been saying this makes us unsafe because Muslim nations aren't going to like that. And a lot of people in the Muslim nations aren't going to like that. It's what the terrorist organization have been telling them is that America doesn't like you. They don't want you in their country, and now their arguments have been justified.
Yeah, they're going to say that regardless. They've been saying it. They've been saying it for the past 8 years when we had some of the most relaxed border security ever in this country. They've been saying it since they've been saying it since the Carter administration. All right, so I mean, us taking.
I understand that there's a base level of it, but what I'm saying is this could accelerate it.
Us taking steps to secure our border, it isn't going to make us less safe. They can hate us from half a world away, okay? But it's when they hate this country and then they're able to come in here and carry out attacks on this country, that's when it becomes a real big problem.
Yes, but they can walk from their country to, like, the European Union and perform terrorist acts over there.
Well, that's because the European Union has weak borders. They need to lock that stuff down, And there have been some countries, some European countries, that are finally wising up and are doing it. Are actually erecting physical barriers to stop refugees from illegally crossing over into their borders. They've said we're not taking any more, and they're taking the steps necessary to secure themselves. And I guess what annoys me so much about the argument when it comes to immigration and when it comes to taking refugees is that there are a lot of countries that haven't taken refugees. There are countries in the Middle East that haven't taken refugees. The United Arab Emirates haven't taken a single Syrian refugee, and they've noted terror concerns as the reason why they haven't. But we, the United States of America, we're expected to fit the bill, to relocate, and we're supposed to fit the bill to take on all these security risks. There's no reason to do it.
Like I said, we said this in episode 1, and you can, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go to our SoundCloud and see episode 1. We have a very extended argument about American values in the third episode, or in the third part of that episode. Anyway, I basically laid out that we need to take American values and apply it to foreign relations.
Right, but we can agree, though, that security is an American value.
Yes, but okay, this argument is supported by another argument. that we caused that entire situation in the Middle East. They enacted by our hand because of the Cold War. We supported Osama bin Laden because he fought the Russian. And then when the Russians were beat back, Osama bin Laden radicalized and went against America. And then we got involved and more involved, and all these power vacuums opened up, and terrorist organizations came in and just like soaked it up, and they got all this power. So there's a lot of people in those nations who don't like that, and who don't like the state of their country, and who want to either immigrate into the United States, or they just want a better life for their kids, and they want a better life for their families. And Keith Ellison, the guy who's running for DNC chair, he made a statement saying the majority of people, the Syrian refugees, are women and children. And PolitiFact had that as 100% true.
That is so debatable, that it's only women and children?
Not only, majority women and children.
Okay, even if that were true, all right, let's say that is true. That doesn't mean that we should take those refugees, because in countries such as Germany and Switzerland that have taken a massive amount of refugees, they have found that the issue isn't necessarily with the adults that are coming into the country. It's that they are coming in with children, and these children have, that are being raised, by Muslim parents. They are already indoctrinated against the ideals of the West. So you have children coming in that are not willing to assimilate, that are not willing to, to find their niche in their new society. And so as they grow, they become more hostile, more violent, and then they want to carve out their own little mini states.
I don't really agree with that. If you go to any school, you have a lot of influences, especially if a Syrian refugee mother with her child comes in and she brings him to a public school, then he is going to get a lot of influences from friends, and in our public school system are very multicultural. So you can have a lot of people you can get a lot of friends with, and not only that itself, but in America we have very good internet access. So they just get on the internet and they can connect with their friends and they can build a life here.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the numbers don't back up that scenario. I mean, the studies that have been done on this show the opposite. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be 100% of the population, but we have ISIS saying that they will infiltrate the refugee population. They have infiltrated the refugee population. We look at countries that have taken a massive amount of these refugees, and they're having a lot of crime problems. Rape has skyrocketed. In fact, in Switzerland, they won't even, or I think it was Sweden, actually, the police can't even state the nationality or ethnicity of a suspect on the basis that they don't want to appear racist. This is it's gone far beyond the pale, as far as I'm concerned. There is being compassionate and wanting to help your fellow man, and then there is putting yourself at unnecessary risk, causing knowable harm to yourself. And here's the thing: if America doesn't protect America and the things that have made this country such a leader on the world stage, then we won't be able to help anyone. We won't have the means to do it.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there shouldn't be any vetting process. I am just criticizing the way it is being done right now. The way it's being done right now is brazen, it is heavy-handed, and it sends a message to the Muslim community saying, we don't want you here, we never wanted you here, you're not welcome here. The way it's being spun, and I think the way the administration wanted it to be spun, was that it was in that very argument, that we don't want you here, no Muslim. And you can't argue that's not the way it's being spun through the media.
Well, you turn on CNN, MSNBC, HLN, you turn on these outlets, or if you go to Huffington Post or thehill.com, if you go to these outlets, the way they're reporting it is that it's a racist Muslim ban. But what I'm saying is that's not the case.
I don't see the administration as being that that dumb to not understand that, they're not going to call it a Muslim ban. It's going to be a terrorist. No, they're going to call it a Muslim ban. And they knew that they were going to call it a Muslim ban.
But in that case, then, shouldn't we be saying, instead of pointing to the Trump administration and saying, hey, you guys shouldn't do the things that you promised to do on the campaign trail, shouldn't we be looking at the media and saying, hey, you guys should be reporting this honestly, instead of spinning this to fit your own narrative?
No, that's my point. I don't think you see my point. I don't think the administration wasn't aware of that. I think they knew they were going to spun it as a Muslim ban, no matter how it got enacted. If there was any kind of travel ban on any, like, if there was only a travel ban on 2 Muslim countries, let's just say Iraq and Afghanistan, then it would still call it a Muslim ban. So they knew that they were going to spin it like that.
Well, no, I mean, I understand the point you're saying. That it was going to be covered a certain way, regardless of how it was enacted. My question then is, if we're saying that the reports of this type of movement from the American government is going to be reported in foreign countries by enemies of America as saying, hey, this is why you should radicalize, then shouldn't these media outlets that are trying to spin the current administration as this racist, Islamophobic, xenophobic monster, shouldn't they bear some of that responsibility because they're not reporting this honestly? That's my question.
No, that's because it partly is.
No, they're saying it's a Muslim ban, and it's not. It's a 90-day cessation of travel from 7 countries. I see. Not even from every priority Muslim, and it still targets Christians and Yazidi Jews. Everyone is targeted.
I see the point. What the actual policy is. I understand the actual point, but I don't think the administration cared about the policy. They wanted it to be those words put into every mouth of the media. Because let me build a little bit of conspiracy theory. So they do that. So then they have terrorist cells in these other countries, and they're open to attacks on Iran. So
I can't believe that.
Military cells in Iran, then they have justification to go in and start a new war, because these Republican senators are getting paid by Lockheed Martin and all of these things, and all these other military industrial complex corporations. So what I think it is a catalyst to start radicalizing these countries, to invade them and make these military industrial complex corporations billions and billions and trillions of dollars off of our military spend.
Well, I'll be honest with you. If this administration is looking for a reason to invade Iran, I really don't think they need to jump through that many hoops to get it done, because Iran has already made a case for military action. They've tested ballistic missiles. I want to say over this past week they tested 2 ballistic missiles, and they've indicated that they plan on testing more. This coming out of the deal with Iran that the previous administration had signed, Trump coming out saying he's not a big fan of it. Something else, another big kind of scary thing that's come across is there's been a bill put forth to authorize military force against Iran.
Trump ran his campaign on the promises of no new wars, and we're gonna focus on at home, and then we're not gonna get involved around the world like that. This is one of many campaign promises he's breaking, along with not cutting Social Security and Medicare. We've heard crickets about that, by the way. I'm not surprised, because I know who these people are being paid by, and there's no other reason than for these Republicans, because their donors want them to make them money. Now, you could say, they're testing ballistic missiles and it's not good and everything, but Obama sat down at the table and he used diplomacy first. And I think that Iran saw that now that there's a president who doesn't want to be diplomatic, then, well, what's the point of not testing our equipment anymore?
Well, because now, they've been hit with sanctions on the international stage. They've violated, UN treaties by testing these ballistic missiles. I mean, from our perspective in the United States, if Iran is developing nuclear weapons and a delivery method via ballistic missiles, then we have the moral imperative to stop them by any means necessary, because they're a clear and present threat to our allies in the region, namely Israel. And the various leaders of Iran have gone on record as saying that they do not view Israel as a legitimate state, and they want to wipe it off the face of the planet and kill everyone in it. So, I mean, personally, just given the history of the United States with Iran, I think that if we wanted to invade Iran, we don't need we don't need the idea of, well, there's radicalized terrorist cells in Iran. That we can find enough due cause for a military action in Iran just leafing through the past 10 years of our history with them, I think.
Like I said before, I'll give Obama credit. He sat down at the table and he said, we'll lift the sanction if you stop doing nuclear tests. And the sanctions were lifted, and the deal was the deal. And it was in my opinion, that's one of Obama's crown jewels of his entire administration, was that he stopped Iran from developing nuclear weapons. It doesn't matter if they wanted nuclear reactors. That's a bullcrap argument, because they have a ton of oil, and the way they were going to build nuclear reactors was not going to supplement their energy use at all. If Trump does sit at the table with them and talk something out, because that's how democracies work, that's how diplomacy works, not just going guns blazing because we don't like how you're doing things. We put economic sanctions that saves American lives, that saves our tax dollars. You do it with words, and that's where I want the entire world to start going to. Starting to have wars with words and not wars with guns anymore.
Well, truth be told, I don't think the chances of Donald Trump sitting down to negotiate with the leading parties in Iran is going to be very probable. I think we're more than likely. I would put money on that we would see aggression taken in the region over by this administration before we see a real detailed diplomatic strategy. Now, I could be wrong. Just given what we know about Donald Trump from his dealings in the business world, he's known to make a big boisterous show as a show of strength, and then when it comes to actually negotiating, that using that he's kind of got his opponent a little off kilter, using that as leverage to get a better negotiating platform. So, hey, maybe, fingers crossed that we're looking at a lot of this, that a lot of this is just posturing to get a better position with Iran and UAE and Iraq and those different nations in the region. But I guess time will tell on that one.
They might be playing three-dimensional chess. Like you said, they might be using that as leverage to get a better negotiating spot. That might be a smart move. I don't know how that would work out. I'll just have to see it when I believe. I have to believe it when I see it. I don't want to be in a war. I don't want to be drafted in the military for a war that I don't care about.
I don't think we'd have to worry about a draft. Fortunately, I'm too old to be drafted anyway, so it doesn't matter to me.
How old are you?
32.
33?
32.
35.
What?
35.
No, 30 is the cutoff.
So yeah, 45 is the cutoff age. You're coming with me if I'm going.
Yeah, I have a college degree, all right. They'll take me into OTS, I'm sure.
Yeah, you have a bachelor's degree. They'll kind of snicker.
If you have a bachelor's degree, you can join the military as an officer. You qualify for officer training school. Yep. So.
According to my sources, if you have a bachelor's degree, you can give me an officer in the military.
Hey man, I'll take it. That's a pretty decent pay scale.
Anyway.
Just kind of something that I wanted to do. Just something that kind of wanted to run over to real quick, because there's been a lot of talk about this being a Muslim ban, and there's been a lot of outcry from Muslim outreach groups, most notably CARE. Has kind of said, this is anti-Islamic, we can't let this stand. So I just wanted to kind of run this down real quick. There are many, many countries in that area. There are actually 16 Muslim countries that have a ban on Jews traveling into those countries. And those countries are Syria, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, Libya, Algeria, Bangladesh, Brunei, Kuwait, Lebanon, Malaysia, Oman, Pakistan, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. 6 of the 7 states that are part of Trump's quote-unquote ban permanently bar Jews from traveling into their countries. So the idea that saying, okay, people can't travel to and from these geographic locations is racist, but that isn't, I have an issue with.
Do we want to sink to their level, though? That's my point. Do we want to sink to their level? American values should be higher than that. We should be above that. So that's why people want to go from those countries to our country, because we are on a higher moral level than that.
Perhaps.
In that particular instance. In a lot of other particular instances, like women can't drive in Saudi Arabia. So I can understand a woman from Saudi Arabia would like to come to America because, hey, she can drive
until
a car.
They drive in Virginia, and then they're going to wish that
right.
they're going to hit DC traffic. They're going to be like, oh, okay, I won't miss this. But you had something that you wanted to share as well.
Oh yeah, so yeah, this is fun. This is an economics update. So America added about 275,000 jobs in the month of, I think, December to January.
Praise Trump.
So it's funny because Trump has been avidly out there claiming that this is all him. This is what his America is going to be. And Sean Spicer was out there saying that we're going to add 25 million new jobs, make America great again, blah, blah, blah. But the funny thing is, the jobs number was taken, the data itself was taken when Obama was still in the administration. So we're talking mid-January back to mid-December, before the inauguration. This is still Obama's number.
Here's what I'll say. It could very easily be argued, though, that the companies responsible for those jobs saw the incoming administration and had high hopes, and so began hiring in anticipation of the great things that the Trump administration will bring to this country.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think also that in the next couple of months, we still won't see some of the effects of Trump's economic plan because, the budget hearings aren't until, the end of summer? So for the next couple of months, I still think we're still seeing Obama's economy.
Well, I don't know. We'll see how many jobs that wall creates. You're talking about a lot of construction jobs. You're talking about a lot of steel working jobs.
So when they say that Mexico is going to pay for it, do they mean that Mexicans are going to build the wall?
I don't know. We'll see.
So when they finish it, they're like, okay, go finish the brick on the other side. Okay, see ya.
Just close the gate, lock it.
Close the gate behind it. It's like, bitch.
So that's just a sampling of the insanity that our world has devolved into over the past couple weeks. And I gotta say, at some point in time, we've got to realize that there has to be productive discourse going forward. Now, I can't speak for the current administration if they feel like they can't have productive discourse with the Democrats. During the confirmation hearings, the Democrats on these committees boycotted the confirmation hearings, would not show up for the vote in order to stall it. And Orrin Hatch basically had to suspend the rules so that a vote could be had so that people could get confirmed. Now, whether or not you like these people, I feel like is almost kind of a non-point at this juncture, because you have massive important agencies that have no leadership, that have no head. And I feel like that kind of obstructionist strategy, it didn't work for the Republicans during the Obama administration. It just engendered more animosity, and all it's going to do is it's going to continue to divide our country if we keep going forward this way.
So, to my knowledge, Bernie Sanders has attended every single hearing because he understands that if you're there and you're there to testify against these cabinet picks, then you have a voice and your voice can be heard. And these cabinet picks will know that you're there and you're willing to oppose them on whatever they're trying to do. And you could involve impeachment proceedings basically fire them. if they wanted to. If they wanted to really try to get it done.
Well, I mean, I would expect nothing less from Bernie Sanders because, I don't agree with a lot of his policies where he stands on. He shows up. He shows up for work. Whether you like the guy or not, you got to respect the fact that he shows up for work. A lot of representatives in this country don't show up for work like they should.
Yeah, he takes the train to work, man. Not even joking. There's a lot of pictures of him walking to the train station and taking the train and the bus to work. That's just to make a point. He could drive, but he takes public transportation because that's what his constituents do. Anyway, but that's my point on it. If you want to, you have to be there to make a power play and to show these people who want to be confirmed.
Yeah. Well, that's the point of the process. It's to sit there, make your voice heard, even if you're going to vote and you don't like the person, still vote no, have it on record. Because the way that it was done now, it basically just looks like they threw a little temper tantrum and they wanted to take their ball and go home. No, show up, have it be put on record so that if one of these people do screw up, you can say, hey, I told you, I voted no.
Yeah. And the thing is, I am tired of these little bitchy corporate Democrats. I'm sorry. We watch our Justice Democrats episode and you'll see what I mean about how we can get this fixed. Because we got to get these guys out of our government. These are the weakest leaders I've ever seen. It is shameful that we have these people in these positions.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I really feel like I'm seeing with the Democrats what we saw with the Republicans 8 years ago, where there was this big shift, where there were a lot of Republicans, the rhinos, the Republicans in name only, that were very centrist. They wanted to appeal to the more liberal. They felt like they needed to get these liberal votes. They felt like they needed to pander to corporate interests, that they couldn't stand on their principles. And we've seen definitely over the past 4 years, even before that, there was a groundswell. We've seen the Republican Party shift from this really toothless organization to now something that is having its voice heard, that is now becoming something to be reckoned with.
Well, Democrats in Bush's administration were fighters. They had to fight Bush every step of the way. I wish they would have fought him on Iraq, but wishful thinking.
Well, they got comfortable. That's what I chalk it up to, is they got comfortable. They got comfortable with having this big voice for culture and for kind of having things go their way. And I honestly feel like our system works best when you have two very strong opposing voices, because that way they're not shouting each other down, and you get the best of the debate that you're going to get. And without that, you just have you have one side running roughshod over the other, and then the people on the other side, or the people who oppose that, they feel like their voices aren't being heard, and then you get extreme candidates voted in, and then it goes back and forth, and it ends badly.
I think it's going to be accelerated and exacerbated in the age we are in now, because in 2008 it wasn't really much you could do on social media fronts. Maybe in 2012, but still it wasn't even at the level we're at now. Right now, we could see the entire Democratic Party be completely overrun and just kicked out and replaced with very strong progressives, because they can work through organizations like Justice Democrats and through organizations like Our Revolution, run by Sanders, and they'll be able to use social media to get their message out for a lot cheaper than they would have had to do if they just wanted to run political ads on TV. And they can get young people mobilized. So, yeah, you're right. We're seeing a groundswell on the left now, which we absolutely need if we want to win in 2020 and if we want to win in 2018. And we have to do it now, and we have to do it fast, especially if we want to win in 2018. Because the best way to beat Trump is to win in 2018 and win big. If we can win big in 2018, we can regain the Senate, maybe not the House, but still we can lock down one of the legislative branches and block a lot of stuff that Trump wants to get done.
Well, that'll take I mean, I'm not going to say that it's impossible because the Republicans faced a very similar task previously. I think a lot of it's gonna be predicated on just how well or how poorly, these 2 years of the Trump administration are received by the public. Obviously there are going to be places where Republicans were recently voted in. They might not hold that seat, but I don't know. There's a long road ahead of us, and I think there's a lot of trust that's been betrayed that needs to be won back, and that's on both sides. There's a lot of Republicans who don't like Trump and who think that he stands for something very different than what they believe that party should stand for, and there's a lot of Democrats who have lost the trust of their people, and they got to get that back. We got to get more productive discourse going on in this country, or we're going to lose our country.
Yeah, you made a good point that if Trump tanks his first 2 years, he's going to lose. Republicans are going to lose in 2018 because people are going to associate Republicans with Trump, and they're going to think, "Oh, I hated Trump. I hated Trump's first 2 years. So when I hate you because you have an R next to your name," and that could very well happen. We have a very big two-party system, and it's guilty by association. And if that happens, progressive, not Democrats, because most Democrats in Senate and House are corporate. Progressives need to seize that opportunity because we might not get it again. In 2020, we might, and if we actually run a really good progressive candidate, and we really could seize on it. But to stop a lot of hurt and to stop a lot of things that could be damaging to our country, we need to seize an opportunity if Trump starts tanking his first 2 years. That's more of a message to my fellow progressives.
I mean, either way, too. And if you're listening to this and you're more on the conservative side, if this current presidency, if this current administration and this Republican leadership starts doing things that are objectively bad, it's our job to say, hey, we don't support this. Even if it's somebody who you supported during the entire election cycle, if they start enacting things that are just wrong and go against your principles, it's your responsibility as an American to speak up and say, hey, I don't agree with this, and write your representative, petition the White House and say, hey, these are things that we can't we as a country can't stand by. And if they don't listen, guess what? 2018, vote them out. That's the power in this country. If you voted for somebody once, it doesn't mean that they have your vote for the rest of your life. That means they earned it once, but they have to continually earn it, or they lose their job. It's just like if you hire somebody, if you're a manager and you hire somebody, that doesn't mean you have to keep them on. That means, hey, they pass that interview process, and at that point in time, they seem to be the best person for the job, but they show up drunk to work too many times or once at all, hey, you got to let them go.
And I think in 2018, there's like something 20 plus Democratic seats up for grabs, and there's about 9 Republican seats up for grabs in the Senate. I'm not sure what the numbers are for the House, but people see that as, oh, we could lose a lot more Democratic seats. I see it as we have a chance to take out a lot of corporate Democrats. Because if we start running, even if we ran half of that 20 number as we primaried them, we beat them in a primary, and now we're running a real progressive against a Republican, I believe that it would be easy to win something like that. Even in a hard state, it could be easy to win something like that.
I was going to say, as a conservative voter, I personally want to see this happen because there's a lot of things that I align with you're more with your classical liberals, and your classical and your modern conservatives and your classical liberals. They align on a lot of things, and that the current Democrat Party, because of the way it's structured and who they wish to appeal to, won't allow them to work with people to get objectively good things, like allowing us to negotiate and buy medicine from other countries where it's cheaper. It's ridiculous that we don't do that.
Like I said before, look at Bernie Sanders. He's one of the best progressives who's able to get Republican votes. He got 13 Republican votes for that bill, and it got knocked down because Democrats didn't support it. Like Cory Booker didn't support it because he was paid by he's a big pharma whore.
But
Yeah.
We have run long.
Yes, we have.
But there's a lot more that honestly we could go into right now. But we've reached the end of our line tonight. So remember to email us with any thoughts or questions, any topics you'd like to hear us cover. Email us at balancepointradio@gmail.com. You can check us out on SoundCloud. Just search for Balance Point Radio. Also, Twitter, you can reach us at balance_point. And also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell if you're watching this on YouTube. Next time we speak, we'll be talking about the Justice Democrats and breaking down the next point of their platform. So we'll see you then. Good night.